This is Kingsbury in northwest London. Locals say the area has been transformed over the past 5 years as post-Brexit visa opportunities opened up for people coming from South Asia.
They find this area easy to live in because they know they can survive. It looks like as if you are walking through mini Mumbai.
We've arranged to meet someone who lives in the community and helps with events here. He doesn't want to be identified, but raises serious concerns about visa abuse.
In the last 5 years, a huge amount of people have come in this country on this visiting visa. They just come with one thing in mind, overstay and work in cash.
And in a further insight into how the system is being abused, he claims economic migrants are regularly arriving who've paid strangers to pretend they're a friend or relative in order to obtain a visitor visa to get to Britain.
I come across so many people who has come this way into this country.
You think it's widespread, a stranger sponsoring a stranger?
It's a widespread, yeah. When I talk to these people, they literally tell me, oh, someone is coming tomorrow, day after tomorrow, is someone coming. I said, what happens if you get caught? They're laughing at us because they know Britain is a soft country where you won't be picked up easily. And who is paying for it? It's the taxpayers who are paying for this.
The government has no idea with any real degree of accuracy exactly how many people are in the country who have overstayed their visas. No data has been collated for 5.5 years. But piecing together multiple accounts from community leaders and lawyers, the current picture we've built is stark.
At this time, there's definitely in excess of about 200,000 people overstaying in the UK. It might even be closer to 3, it could even be 400,000.
How do you get to that figure? What's the evidence for that?
Every day I see at least one overstayer. Many immigration lawyers like me see overstayers, and that is a lot of the bulk of the work for immigration lawyers. The Home Office doesn't have any accurate data because we don't have any exit controls.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's a shambles. It's an institution where every wall in the building is cracked.
So why is your hand shaking?
Many, like Anike, have for years lived in fear of the Home Office. She came to the UK from Nigeria on a 3-month visitor visa when her sister Esther was diagnosed with a brain tumour. Anike has now overstayed her visa for 12 years. Esther begs for her sister to be allowed to stay in Britain.
I'm really afraid they'll tell me she's detained somehow to go back home.
She says she's dependent on her for care after complications following brain surgery. Now living in Greater Manchester, Anike has had applications to stay in Britain on compassionate grounds turned down 7 times. Yet the Home Office knows she exists because it makes her digitally sign in every month.
Although you may have been granted immigration bail, you remain liable to be detained. So when you get this every first day of the month, it's horrendous. I've heard stories of people's application under solicitors' cabinet.
But something has changed for Anike. Frustrated by her life in limbo, what she's afraid of now is the hardening public mood over immigration and its political consequences.
When you hear Nigel Farage talking about sending hundreds of thousands potentially of people back to their country of birth, what impact does that have on you?
It does make me worry. Everybody is thinking what will become of people like us.
What do you think about the fact that you've been in limbo for 12 years?
I don't know. I don't know how the Home Office works.
Disillusioned with the system, we meet Anike at a Nigerian community centre where people regularly come for help to settle their status.
Day to day that we see people come here and that's what they tell us, that they are visa overstayer. You know, we've got so many stories around visas, you know, and that's how we know that a lot of people are on visa overstayers.
How would you describe the climate right now amongst people that you support?
It is tensed, yeah, it's tensed. Some people comes forward and some people goes underground. It all depends, you know.
We head south from Manchester into the world of those who disappear within their communities.
So we've arranged to meet someone who came to the UK a few years ago on a student visa, but he's overstayed that visa. He's now got no legal status. He's doing cash in hand work, so we've arranged to meet him after his labouring job, but we know he's quite nervous about talking to us.
We're calling him Ramesh. We meet at a Gurdwara, a Sikh place of worship where he's come to pray and be fed. Ramesh says he survives on handouts and stays with relatives. He came to the UK just over 2 years ago on a student visa, but says it was cancelled when he stopped going to university after he was involved in a bad accident. He insists he can't return to India because of his political activism. Ramesh says he's currently working on a house extension for someone he knows, earning as little as £50 a day for 9 hours work, around £5.50 an hour.
There are a lot of Pakistani peoples is helped to me to give work in his house for cleaning and for householding things. Yeah.
And it's all cash in hand?
Yeah, all this cash in hand.
Which you know is illegal in Britain?
Yeah, I know it's illegal in Britain, but I don't have any another option to manage my financial situation.
In response, a Home Office spokesperson said, "We will not tolerate any abuse of our immigration system, and anyone found to be breaking the rules will be liable to have enforcement action taken against them." In the first year of this government, we have returned 35,000 people with no right to be here. Arrests and raids for illegal working have soared to their highest levels since records began. A report has been commissioned by the government assessing the scale of visa overstaying in Britain, another major issue for the embattled Home Office trying to regain the initiative after a summer of unrest over migration. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
Let's now speak with the immigration lawyer, Harjap Singh, Bhangal. Harjap, always a pleasure to have your company. This will come as no surprise to you. You and I have been having this conversation for all of these years now. More and more people simply come to Britain and never go home.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to overstay in this country for people. They just come on a visa and they just don't go back. And that's literally what it is. We don't have any exit controls or monitoring for the last few years. Other countries have exit controls. Anybody who's flown from Heathrow or Gatwick will know that there's no immigration. You just get your ticket, your boarding pass, but there's actually not an immigration counter there where they actually check you out. So the fact is, the UK doesn't know how many people who are coming actually go back. And therefore estimates are varied from, thousands to hundreds of thousands. And people stay here and work cash in hand. And some people have been staying here for months. Some people are staying here for up to 15, 16 odd years.
And that's the point. They come here on legal visas, family visas, work visas, student visas. They're not coming on dinghies. They're coming in legally. But the point is they overstay and never go home. And there's a report out from the National Audit Office yesterday, Harjap, about the fact we have no idea how many people are here illegally. And isn't this the point? We have an asylum system defined by anarchy.
Well, yeah, it's not even the asylum system. It's the Home Office, which is in chaos. And it has been for many years. We have a Select Affairs Committee report. Every year it tells us, regardless of what government's in power, that this institution is not fit for purpose. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And therefore, instead of investing in it and making it fit for what it's due, all they do is try to change the leader of the institution, change the managers, try and paper over the cracks and tell us, don't worry, we're working on it. But if you look at what's happening at ground level, it doesn't seem as if it's working. Now, this Labour government has said they've sent back 35,000 overstayers, but we don't actually how many are staying every year. So if 100,000 are staying, then 35,000 isn't enough. If 10,000 are staying, then it is. But the fact is, there should be a system to make sure that before the expiry of the visa, this government monitors people and make sure that they do get back, or at least penalise the people that have sponsored them to come in the first place.
And in the article that you're quoted in, one of the people who had overstayed their visa illegally, they said they stay in Britain because they know it's a soft country. And isn't that the point, Harjap? We don't have anything akin in Britain, for example, to Donald Trump's ICE agents going around. We have hardly any illegal immigration raids, and the odds of being caught are tiny. And so long as the odds are stacked in favour, people will continue to come here legally and never go home.
Well, the fact is we do have the equivalent. It's called immigration enforcement, and they have hubs everywhere across the country. The vans go out. We see them on a daily basis go out, and they do raid places. But at the moment, they're more targeted rather than going into people's homes. They're targeted at catching people at work, because then they can find the employer and generate a revenue from it. So remember, employers get fined £40,000 for every person that they have working for them who doesn't have the correct paperwork, and that hits British businesses. So the British businesses aren't too happy about that. But then the rules are they shouldn't be employing them in the first place. The fact is, there's no monitoring, and this is where it all starts off, Martin. There's no monitoring, and therefore there's no fear for people to overstay. There's no risk factor there. They think, you know what, we'll stay, even if we stay for a few years, we can work cash in hand. The black economy doesn't help because they managed to find work here, and they can work and get by. The only thing that kills them off is the fact that it's not a great quality of life. So they lived in rented accommodation, often 10 to a house, working cash in hand. They don't have bank accounts. They don't have national insurance numbers. They can't get any benefits. So it's pretty much, getting money in one hand and then paying the landlord in the other.
Okay, Harjap Singh, Bhangal, we have to leave it there. We've run out of time.
Lawyer Harjap, it's very, very good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for your time. Tell me what you think of this plan. Will it work? Is it fair? And will it stop those pull factors?
Well, theoretically, it's wiping out pull factors, but we have to look at what the actual pull factors are. Are people coming to the UK just because it's a UK and they want to come here? Or is it because of these extra pull factors? So the plan, like you said, is definitely radical. And in the fact of saying, well, hold on, you're not going to get permanent for 20 years, and every 2.5 odd years, we're going to review your situation. And if your country is safe or deemed safe by us, then we can send you back. Whether that will happen in practice is something else. And just like you said, there are other dynamics to it. What if you have a child that's born here and say after 10 years, will they say, well, go back, what happens to your kid? Your kid's never been there, he's never been born there.
I just think, Harjap, I think a lot of this is pie in the sky, because the Conservatives can say we're going to deport 150,000 people a year. How are you actually going to do that? Are you going to say to people who are here and have been here previously legally, right, we're going to pull the rug from under you, and we're going to say, you may have bought property here, you may have kids here. I'm not saying those people should necessarily be here. I'm not arguing that people who arrive here illegally should become legal. I'm not saying that for a second. I'm saying the practicality of people who are here and have been here for a long time, identifying them and deporting them is going to be really, really difficult, even if you're outside the European Convention on Human Rights, although you're the lawyer, not me, Harjap. And actually, from Shabana Mahmood's perspective, if someone's been here for 17.5 years and is just about on the cusp of getting their 20 years and their legal citizenship, are they honestly going to say to that person, and they may well do this and that may well be part of the plan, is the Home Office going to say, right, we're going to send you back to Syria, for example, because we've now deemed it a safe country? I just wonder about the practicality and the political will. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm simply saying, are they actually going to do it, especially when we have a processing system at the moment that cannot cope? How are you going to deal with all this extra bureaucracy?
Well, I think ultimately it's all going to come down to the numbers, right? And what is this attempt to do? The whole attempt is to bring those boat crossings down and bring the numbers down of asylum seekers, the 50, 60,000 odd who come every year on a boat. That's the attempt. And if it works, essentially, if those numbers comes down, then it's worked for Labour. If those numbers don't come down and if the removals don't go up, 150,000, that is pie in the sky, Peter. For the past 15 years, well, I've been looking at the figures, it's never got more than 60,000 in a year. So if the Conservatives think they're going to triple that, then even when they were in government, even when Labour were in government previously before 2010, no one's hit more than 100,000 in a year. 60,000 has been the top that they've managed to do. And it's ultimately about the figures. There is an estimate of possibly 1 million people living in the UK, perhaps under the radar, off the radar, including overstayers.
Chris Phil thinks it could be up to 2 million. How are you going to, if you don't know who those people are now, how are you going to identify who they are and then
You're
deport
never
them?
going to be able to do that. You're going to have to, at some stage, say to these people, we're going to have to bring you into the system, whether it's on a yearly visas, just to know exactly who they are and bring them out.
You think some sort of amnesty could happen?
I think essentially, what are you going to do? You can't just leave 2 million people on the streets or in the black economy like every party's proposing to do. How, if you're so scared of 2 million people who you don't know, or 1 million people who you don't know here living in your community, then surely as a government, your purpose should be to find out who they are, right?
Yeah.
And where they are. So, and how are you going to do that? How are you going to lure someone who's living in a black economy or hiding in a house with other migrants and the Home Office know nothing about, the police know nothing about, and they overstayed their visa? How are you going to say, well, come on, come out?
Yeah,
you'll have to think of some way.
Come clean, fess up, and by the way, we might deport you. I mean, the thought that those people are actually going to do that, as you say, is that phrase again, pie in the sky. So Harjap, great to talk to you. Really interesting to drill down to some of the detail of this. We'll get more of it over the course of the next few days, and we'll continue to cover it. Harjap Singh, Bhangal there.
Pleasure to have your company. You no doubt overheard there. Suddenly, we have action. Catherine Forster has achieved what the Home Office simply failed to do.
Yeah, and there's many cases like this where people do want to go back, but there are delays. I mean, if you have a passport and you're here overstaying and your passport's valid, the best way to go back is buy a ticket and you could go back tonight. But what happens is a lot of the time the travel documents expire. And so new ones have to be made by the respective embassies. And that's where the problem takes place and the delays take place. The embassies are very loath to issue them straight away. They say we want to do an inquiry back home to see, is this person who he is? And just that process takes months. I mean, certain embassies are notorious for their delays. So the Indian embassy takes months in doing that, as well as the Bangladeshi embassy. And that's where the delays happen. But there is definitely delay on the side of the Home Office, and the Home Office with their procedures. The point is the Home Office want to include everyone in the removals and the deportation figures, even if people go back voluntarily. So the Home Office with their procedures. The point is the Home Office want to include everyone in the removals and the deportation figures, even if people go back voluntarily. So the Home Office are always, like you might have seen the latest post on Instagram where it says we've deported or removed 50,000 people since they came in last July. Now, what they don't tell you is that many of them are voluntary and people have just decided to get up and go. Yet the Home Office consider that in the figure. So people might think, where have the Home Office rounded up 50,000 people, put them into vans and held them and sent them back? And they'll be right in thinking that, because many of those people just got up with their passport and went back home.
Harjap, we have a rare glimmer of sunlight in Catherine Forster's victory, but it just seems astonishing to most ordinary, sane people to hear that people are begging to be deported and they can't be. It's like people begging to get put in prison and we can't lock them up. The whole thing is slipping through into clown world.
Well, we know, Martin, and how many years have we been talking about this? That everything the Home Office touches, it destroys. Whether it's passport applications, whether, you know, it's the borders, whether it's visa applications, whether it's the e-visas, whether it's the queues at Dover. This Home Office is not fit for purpose. You know, and I know that there's a Home Affairs Select Committee every year. And for the past 12, 13 years that we've been reading the reports, it says this is an institution not fit for purpose. Now, if you have a factory or machinery that's not fit for purpose, it doesn't matter what the quality of worker you have or what manager you have on it. If your machinery can't produce it, you're not going to get a product. And that's the problem, that the staff are not trained up to the level. You sometimes have gap year students making decisions. You have ex-supermarket staff appointed to make decisions about complex legal matters, and often they get them wrong, leading in appeals and complex situations and waiting times. So this is actually how the Home Office operates, and until this is sorted out, you're going to get from one calamity to another. It doesn't, irrespective of what governments come in. We've seen all of this before, and we've seen schemes being thought up, and yet loopholes in the schemes, be it the bogus colleges from 2010s that were operating above sweatshops with one room in there, calling over hundreds of people on student visas, be it a highly skilled visa program that allowed people come in and the people found to be working there were then not working in highly skilled jobs. They were found to be working in supermarkets. Or be it the student visas and the fake marriages being contracted to bring their dependents over, allowing them over. Couples over, and then realising this year, well, hold on, just before a general election last year, we might want to stop this. So it's loophole after loophole. When you don't have the machinery, not going to have a product.
You're exactly right. My favourite being, of course, the woman who married somebody who was dead and still managed to get a visa to say, Harjap saying we should get people like you involved in the Home Office, might have half a chance. And dare I say, Harjap, thank you very much.
It's up to the countries as to how they deal with their individual immigration programmes. Now, if countries feel that's being signed up to it is being a hindrance, then they can withdraw from it by all means. However, if they also feel that, well, we want to stay in the framework, then they have to navigate their laws around that. And they have to bear in mind the judgments of the ECHR. So many countries have managed to do this, and be successful in relation to sending back failed asylum seekers, whereas others feel that it is a hindrance. Therefore, it's a decision to make for every individual country in respect. And we've seen some governments say, like France, Spain, and Italy, say, well, actually, no, we don't want to withdraw from it at all. We've had some countries, such as Denmark and even the UK now, saying, well, we don't want to withdraw from it, but we'd like some changes made to it so that we can navigate within it.
David Lammy said today that the 1950 European Convention on Human Rights was, quotes, never intended to be frozen in time. Maybe the actual convention wasn't, but it is the wording of its time and therefore needs to be interpreted through a modern lens, or can it be changed without too much difficulty? What are the legal headaches that are involved here?
Any law can always be updated. It can be replaced. It can be amended. Any act can be amended. There can be motions treaties can be amended. It doesn't necessarily need to be scrapped. We've seen that throughout time and throughout history. So therefore, I think what David Lammy is perhaps saying, well, the treaty signed and the law signed at the time and the rules made was suitable for the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, but perhaps not now in today's day and age. But what he's also alluding to is that there currently is a problem, and that he feels that the laws of that time that were made are not helping him solve the problem now. And therefore, he's sort of alluding to that this has become outdated. However, he hasn't gone out and said, well, we need to leave or we need to scrap the laws totally.
Where do you stand on this? What do you think needs to change, if anything, about the convention and about the way that we deal with immigration or irregular migration through the law in this country?
Well, I think we need to look at the figures. So before anyone speculates, we need to look at the figures when the convention came in, when the Human Rights Act came in. So the Human Rights Act 1998 was actually enforced in about 2000, in the year 2000. Now, despite that being in, and that's the mechanism that we use to apply the ECHR, despite that being in, have we managed to send people back? Well, the figures tell us in 2008 and 2009, under the previous Labour government, we were sending back 60,000 people a year, including those who voluntarily left and enforcing them and detaining them. Now, 60,000 people a year we were sending back. So that was despite the ECHR being there. The ECHR and immigration judges and immigration lawyers and human rights activists and charities, despite them being about at that time, they didn't manage to hinder 60,000 people being sent back.
Is that because successful appeals have been put in which set a precedent over time, which makes it progressively more difficult to send people back? So 15 years on, it's a lot harder than it was 15 years ago.
Well, no, because the figures have gone up again, haven't they, recently? So we've seen a Home Office post in the last, 2 weeks saying up until now, since Labour have been in, they've sent back 50,000 people. So the Human Rights Act and the ECHR is in today. Them laws are changing today and have been there. So how have 50,000 been sent back? So either there's a discrepancy in the figures, which we can't really say there is, or the fact is that there are ways to send people back. Perhaps, however, the system that is supposed to be used to send them back, i.e. the Home Office, the institution, and if we have a closer look at that, for the past 15 odd years that there's been a Home Affairs Select Committee report about it, it actually tells us this executive, this mechanism, this institution called the Home Office is not fit for purpose. So it's not fit to do the job that it's supposed to do. So if I have a factory and it's supposed to produce a product, and I give it a product to produce, but because the factory's so poor, it cannot produce a product, do I then say, right, hold on, I'm going to keep the same factory and the same staff, but I'm going to change the product now, and I'm just going to produce something which is substandard? Or do I say, I need new staff and a new factory to make sure that my product gets made? So surely that is the example we need to use, that the system works, but it's not being enforced because the institution is not fit for purpose.
But when you say the system works, I mean, there have been a number of high-profile cases which have horrified the public, which is presumably why politicians are seeking to make changes. There was an Albanian drug dealer who blocked his extradition to Italy, arguing that prisons there were too overcrowded. Two Brazilians who successfully fought extradition, despite one of them being sentenced for repeatedly raping a 5-year-old girl in his home country of Brazil, managed to escape being deported because the jails in Brazil are worse than the ones he was being held in Britain. I mean, when you hear cases like that, when the public hears cases like that, it's no wonder there's a clamour for change. That doesn't sound like a system working as it should. Yeah,
I mean, you do get cases now and again, such as ones you've mentioned. They are few and far between. I think that's important. They're not every week. It's not every day. And it's perhaps out of thousands of cases, you'll get the odd one. And that's where Labour have already picked up on that. So if you remember, they've already said we're going to retrain judges in relation to ECHR and make sure that what they rule is now compatible with the times nowadays. And also they're introducing special adjudicators as well. So new adjudicators will be hired, which will deal solely with immigration. These people will be trained in immigration law solely, and their job will be just to deal with immigration and asylum cases. And they'll be trained in relation to deal with case laws and to probably prevent cases, which you were given the example of happening. You will always get the odd case here and there, well, maybe 5 a year, 10 a year, which perhaps will shock the public. And we often, that's not just in immigration. You get that in criminal law. You might get a rapist who's only sentenced to a year. We had a case in Hounslow where two British people were abusing children from the Send community, non-verbal kids. One of them got a 12-month suspended sentence. One only got 6 months inside. Now, you'd think they deserve harsher sentences, but that's what the judge ruled. So you do get the odd decision, but not just in immigration matters, but all across the board. And that's where Labour are looking at the judges and saying, well, hold on, we want to retrain you and make sure that your decisions are compatible with actually, what we want to achieve.
This sounds very different from what you were telling me earlier about the law being basically okay, but the functioning, the carrying out of the law by the Home Office is not working. Try and explain to a lay listener, and I include myself in that, what you think needs changing at ECHR level and what you think needs changing at Home Office level.
Well, the government seem to think that the ECHR prevents them from doing certain things, from sending people back. And like I said, if we look at the figures, it actually doesn't. The figures, Labour can't say in one point, we've sent back record numbers, which they're saying, and for 50,000 people since we've come in. Oh, but the law's stopping us sending people back. Well, it's clearly not. You're sending back people every day. So people are going back every day. So that's in conflict with itself. What the governments want to change, or what some certain governments want to change, is their attitude towards Article 3, as in relation to prevention of torture and family life, saying that if you've committed crimes, then perhaps the seriousness of the crime should override the fact that you have a family life here. Now, when you start changing laws like that, you go down a difficult road, a tricky road. And that's the thing. In relation to the Home Office not being fit for purpose, the Home Office are the ones who are not sending back people when they're supposed to be sent back. The Home, i.e. when they catch them, sometimes they detain them for a long time, for 9 months, without sending them back. It's the government which failed to sign after Brexit return agreements with countries to send people back. In all of their wisdom in negotiating a treaty with Brexit, and coming out of the EU, coming out of the Dublin Convention, coming out of the multiple return agreements they had with various companies that EU has as a bloc, or countries as a bloc, it decided to come out and it failed to sign any return agreements for any countries. Up until about 2 years ago, we only had 6 return agreements, India and Pakistan being 2 of those countries. So you've got to wonder, why haven't we got 200 return agreements with the various countries from where people arrive from and stay illegally in this country, overstaying their visas or after refusal of the asylum claim? That isn't the fault of the ECHR.
Do you think there's an element of misdirection going on here then? The government are seeking to blame a European bad guy, a European body, rather than look at the problems on their own doorstep and sort them out?
Well, the government knows it's got a problem for the last 15 years. It tells us that. It's saying the Home Office is not fit for purpose. So surely the idea is to make the Home Office fit for purpose, no? That's what you would do if you had a factory that wasn't fit for purpose. If me or you weren't fit to do our job, the job wouldn't change. We'd be out on our ear and someone else would take our job who could do the job. That's how life works. So that's what the Home Office need to do. So what they're doing is they're saying, well, actually what they're doing is we're probably giving their managers bonuses for doing a substandard job. And they're just trying to paper over the cracks, saying, even though they know that the whole building is rotten and the walls need knocking down and rebuilding from the start, but what they're trying to do is say, well, paper over the cracks and see if it works. And it clearly, doesn't, because their own report and their own MPs tell us this. So they have to misdirect somewhere. Yet we have seen by the government's own figures and by their own facts, which are searchable on the Home Office, that despite the ECHR, despite Europe, despite all the agreements, they were sending back 60,000 people in 2008, 2009. Even a coalition government in 2010 and 2011 was sending back 55,000 people. These figures all plummeted after Brexit.
That was Harjap Singh, immigration lawyer, talking about the discussions over the European Convention on Human Rights.